Please put your hands together for Mr. Grant Denton.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I'm super happy to be here. When I say that, I mean at the right event. Not too long ago, Patrick and I were scheduled to speak at an event just like this one. And when we showed up, as it turned out, it wasn't the St. Thomas Aquinas fundraiser. It was actually a breastfeeding convention. Needless to say, we nailed it. So Pat and I speak a lot together, and he gave me some advice once. He said, if you're ever nervous, just do what my mom says to do when you speak in front of groups of people, is just picture everybody naked. And to be honest, I'm a little nervous right now, so bear with me while I take some advice. Just give me a second. Hello. My name is Grant Denton, and to be in my opinion, I think when people do speeches and they use quotes from other speakers, I think it's lame. I think it's lazy. I think it's a way of getting out of actually writing a speech. It's almost criminal. It's plagiarism even. So having said that, I'm going to open up with a quote. And it's from the Red Queen in Alice in Wonderland. And it says, in my kingdom, you have to run as fast as you can just to stay in the same place. No one standing still can triumph, no matter how well constituted. By a show of hands, who's ever felt like they're running as fast as they can and never gotten anywhere? Right? I was there, and it was from 2004 to late 2014. I was addicted to heroin and meth and spent some time, about the last 3 years, homeless. And if you've never been addicted to drugs before, I want you to think of the most toxic relationship you've ever been in, right? You meet somebody, you guys fall in love right away. You're just hot and heavy and super intense, and you hang out every day, and in a month you realize that this is the most terrible person you've ever met, and you made a very bad decision. And then you stay with them for 6 years. Or more. So how does someone become an addict? Like, I don't know. I think when you get clean, if you've ever been addicted, when you get clean, you try to process things, and you think back, like, what was it? And for me, it was a few things, and it was in childhood. And the first thing for me was my dad leaving. And the leaving wasn't the bad part. My dad was abusive, physically abusive. He was a scary, very, very mean person, and my mom finally kicked him out, said, you gotta leave. It was good. Then he came back. Then he left again. Then he came back, and every time he came back, it was like a tornado, and it was scary. It was chaos, especially when you're a kid, and it's unpredictable, and you don't know what's gonna happen. And then another time was my aunt leaving. My aunt didn't really leave. So my Aunt Kathy was my favorite aunt. And one time my mom came in and she sat all the kids down. There was 8 siblings. She sits us all down in the living room, and she's crying. And she's like, you guys, your Aunt Kathy. Now keep in mind, my Aunt Kathy was the coolest. She was like my best friend, right? She was a bodybuilder. She played college basketball. She had hair like Debbie Gibson. She was so cool. So when my mom starts crying about her, we all start crying about her. And my mom's like, you guys, I have terrible news. Your aunt is a lesbian. And we're like, no, what's a lesbian? What is a lesbian? And as it turns out, that means that you're gay and you like the same sex. And that wasn't the thing that was traumatic for us. What was traumatic was that is that after that, you never saw my aunt again, because my family had these belief systems that was wrong, and I knew that wasn't right. She was one of the greatest people I've ever known, and because of our belief systems, my aunt was gone. And you fast forward a few years later, and when I was 11, I was molested by a family friend. And it went on longer than it should have, because I wouldn't tell my family, because I knew what my family did to gay people, and I was confused, and I felt like what this guy had done to me made me gay, and I didn't want to get thrown out, right? And when these things happen, when you're a kid, who's ever cried in their pillow and said never again, right? And we build these walls to protect us. And I think that's what happens, right? And would I have become a drug addict if that would have never happened? I don't know. I got friends that had great childhoods and still became a drug addict. But every time the worse my life got, I always recalled on that and blamed it on those things. And so for 10 years, I was a rapidly downward spiraling drug addict. I was caught in this vicious cycle. I was on the streets, in jail, detox, hospital, jail, streets. Until one day, I was in a bathroom stall. If you're a drug addict, you have weird relationships with bathroom stalls. Everybody laughing knows, and I was getting ready to go see my PO, my probation officer. I was on probation for burglaries and other crimes, and I was doing what I always do before I go see my PO. I was getting high because I needed to be what I thought was normal, right? So, and I had my probation officer was this okey doke probation officer. Everybody know if you're on probation, and sometimes you get this okey doke probation officer, Officer Williams. And he wouldn't even, when I would go see him, I signed my name in at the office, I signed his name in, I go back, and he's at his desk, and he wouldn't even look up at me. He'd be like, "Hey, Denton, you got a job?" And I'm like, "Yes, I have a job. Working all the time. I'm working so much." Totally lying. "Denton, you still living at your mom's house?" I was like, "Yeah, my mom's great. She's a really wonderful support system. I've been trespassed from my mom's house for the last 2 years." Then he's like, "Denton, you doing drugs?" I'm like, "Drugs, sir? Of course not. I would never. Drugs, they're so bad for you." And so one day I go there and I sign my name, and then I sign Officer Williams, and the lady behind the counter, when I slide it over to her, she's like, "Oh, Mr. Denton, Mr. Williams got promoted. Your probation officer is Officer Gallagher." And I'm like, "Officer who?" And this big, goofy dude comes out, and he's holding a cup in his hand. He's like, "Mr. Denton," and I'm like, It was that UA cup. And I failed my drug test, needless to say, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I got locked up, then I went for about a year, and I went to rehab, and then and I came out and I was placed in a program exactly like Step 1. And it's because of programs like Step 1. You have to know the value of this place. It's because of programs like Step 1 that I'm where I am today. And I get to have things. I'm not talking about physical things. This morning, this morning, when I'm getting ready for work and my kids are getting ready for school, I'm walking in the hall, and my son, my 11-year-old son, and if you know Roman, you know how he is. I catch him in the bathroom, doing his hair and dancing in the mirror. And he's getting it. He's just getting it. And I stop and I tear up because now I get to have these things. And the coolest part was that when he noticed that I was watching him, he didn't even miss a beat. He was just like, That was the coolest thing that I've ever seen. And now I get to have those things. Drug addiction's crazy, right? It's especially when you're on the streets. It's you go into survival mode, right? And these survival mechanisms are like a rope hanging off a cliff. And you're holding on these things for dear life because it's all you know. And then somebody comes over the cliff and they lower another rope and they're like, hey, grab this. I'm gonna pull you to safety. And it's scary because you don't want to grab this rope, right? I know this one. I know what I'm surviving on right now. And in order to recover, you have to trust this person. You have to trust those new survival mechanisms, right? And part of that means surrendering. Surrendering is a weird gig because it indicates that maybe waving a white flag indicates you're weak. And I couldn't be further from the truth. It takes a lot of courage to throw your hands up and click into a new version of yourself and step into the unknown. And you got to applaud step one for throwing a rope over the cliff for all these guys, and you got to applaud these guys for being courageous enough to grab it and surrender. I have to tell you that it's not the programs that help people as much as it is the people. And since I've been on the board of Step One, I've had an opportunity to work with the staff and the guys. And I have to tell you, this staff is some of the most caring, hardworking, compassionate people, and the board too, that you'll ever meet. The work that goes in to helping these guys. And the guys, some of the most resilient, articulate, driven, passionate guys you'll ever meet. I know this, I work with them. You guys are good dudes. Matter of fact, guys, stand up. And everybody give these dudes a round of applause for being so courageous. Thanks, guys. So I was just on Capitol Hill a few days ago, and we were lobbying for this act, and you run around and you're trying to convince people that you have a good idea and that they should support it. It was crazy, right? And the lady that was guiding us through it, I'm like, and she does this every day. I'm like, do you like doing this? And she's like, like it, I freaking love it. And I'm like, why is that? You like politics? She's like, absolutely not. Everybody here has a purpose. And whether you agree with them or not, they're here fighting for what they believe in. And I get to rub elbows with these people. And that's the coolest shit I ever heard. Because right now, I'm in a room, just the fact that you guys are here indicates that you believe in step one, right? And the fact that you're here also proves that you're willing to fight for it. It's an honor to rub elbows with you guys, and it's an honor to work with Step One. They're producing better sons, better dads, better brothers, better men. So thank you, and thank you for having me.